Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Everyday Arborist podcast. This is Cam again with another episode, and I hope you guys have been doing well and enjoying the somewhat mild or maybe cold weather wherever you guys are at. But this week, I have a unique opportunity to interview Jesse Coleman, and he is in New Zealand and is currently in summertime, which is pretty wild for us in North America experiencing Christmas season in the cold. But yeah, welcome, Jesse. And I won't even brave to say the name of your tree care company because you probably have a whole way that it's pronounced. But yeah, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Kim. Thanks for having me, mate. So my company name is pronounced Köwhai Tree Care.
Wow, I would
So
totally not have gotten that.
yeah, I get it. I get a lot of Köwhai or and that kind of thing. But yeah, Köwhai is a native tree, and the correlation you could probably see on the little cap there is a little tui, and those two, the Köwhai tree and the tui, kind of like stick together, and that's kind of like a nice representation of what I wanted for my business
That's awesome.
image, I guess. Yeah.
Well, before we get into too much of your tree company, are you originally from New Zealand?
I am born and bred, mate. So born down in a little spot called Nelson,
Huh.
which is at the top of the South Island, and then moved up here to Tauranga pretty early on, maybe when I was like, I think 3, and then lived here for most of my life until I shot off overseas for a bit, and then yeah, back to my roots now.
Awesome. And where did you go overseas? Did you say Germany earlier when we were talking? Or?
Yes. I was living over in Germany for about 7 years in a place called Heidelberg. Beautiful city, really nice old city. One of the only places that didn't get bombed during the war.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And you were doing tree care there?
Yep, I was, mate. Hard at it, slaving away. German
That was
winters,
uh
German summers.
that was probably quite the difference for you going from like New Zealand to Germany as far as arboriculture and like weather, or was it not too much of a
Uh,
change?
I think the ARB side of things is definitely different. I really enjoy the work you do in Germany. A lot of fine pruning, um, which I really enjoy. You know, working on
Yeah.
big old oaks and beeches and castles and parks, and shooting up and doing a little bit of deadwood here and then some pruning. And I really miss that kind of work. New Zealand is a little bit more big trees, big chainsaws, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Was it a
but
lot
yeah,
of pollarding in Germany?
nah, there is pollarding, but not
Yeah.
not not a huge amount. Not a huge amount. I think it's
Yeah.
uh, in the cities there's a bit, but we didn't really do much of that. We were more kind of like castles and parks and all that kind of
Wow.
stuff. Mm.
So those are probably some pretty old trees too, especially if that like was a city that didn't get bombed either. Maybe some historic trees in that area.
Yep. Yeah. So we worked in a couple of really nice places. A place called Schloss Schwetzingen. My German pronunciation isn't as good as what it once was. But yeah, lots of old trees, and that have kind of historical value. You know, there's areas that would like come in through to the actual Schloss, which is the castle itself, and they'd have historical vistas that you'd have to kind of like prune to that would go all the way down through to see the other side of the actual what would you call it? I guess you'd call it the park. Um, and yeah, just interesting, lots of interesting work there for sure.
Yeah.
I've got very good at throw line.
Oh man, I bet.
Yeah, very good
Wow.
at throw line.
And
Yeah, but
how did you get connected in Germany? Did you have friends that you met that were over there? Or?
actually, my ex was German, so
Oh,
she was here in New Zealand. We met here in New Zealand, and then I shot over there while she was doing her study. But that was back when SRT was kind of just not rope wrench, but like ascenders, and so I
Yeah.
was in the winter footlocking up, 35-meter oak trees in the snow and all that classic,
Hmm.
Used to walk to school with my bare feet and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I've always, I don't know anyone personally that lives there, but the Instagram community has like a good bit of people who are arborists in Germany who share like pictures or videos or stuff they're learning. I think Mark Bridge with Tree Imagineers, is he in Germany?
He's in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Well, I'll guess encompass all of that area and say that there's some good arborists over there. So,
Yeah, some very, very, very good arborists, climbing arborists, and all that for sure. There's a big emphasis on responsibility when you're an
hmm.
arborist over there, in terms of like, if you prune a tree, essentially, you're up there taking care of it. So if you miss something, then the company can be liable for that, if it runs through the courts.
Hmm.
So it teaches you to have an eye for detail and not just kind of go, oh, we'll just do that and head off to the next tree. You kind of have to go up and have eyes on the entire tree if there's something that the bomb controllers missed, or um, yeah. So there's a lot of responsibility involved. So you learn to uh, work a tree efficiently, because you essentially have to get around the whole thing, even if the work order is
Yeah.
for a bit of dead wood or something.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, um, it's way different than the US where there's, they are trying to improve regulation here, but way off of what you just, said where Germany and a lot of the UK is. And
Yeah, yeah.
so,
I think Germany has a lot to do with insurance and liability and things like this. So,
yeah.
um, but that it means that, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It means that trees get worked on frequently, um, but it also means that there's a lot of work that gets done, and you're kind of thinking, is that really necessary?
Yeah.
But it means, if you're working the same tree um, that you worked last year, well, actually I was up here. All you got to do is have a bit of a scout around, and that there's only going to be a couple of bits of deadwood here and there. So like
Yeah.
it kind of balances out.
Yeah. Nice. Well, before we get too far down the path on later on in your career, like what was it like growing up in New Zealand and what got you into tree work?
New Zealand's a great place to grow up, mate. I think the vibe here and the culture here is really cool. Everyone's still pretty open and friendly, and I think uh, I wouldn't have really wanted to grow up anywhere else in the world, to be honest. Yeah, and that's after
That's awesome.
traveling many, many places, and that's kind of why I came back here, and you know, to build a family and all that.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's awesome.
And in regard to starting my career, it was, I initially, after I left school, I was going to go to university, and then kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do, and so I just
Yeah,
started working in kiwi fruit. So we're doing grafting and post graft care, and that kind of got me interested in horticulture and plants, and I was doing that, and uh, it was like 7 days a week kind of thing. I kind of got a bit over it, and being 18, I was kind of into partying and all that kind of stuff. So, um,
yeah,
so I kind of flagged that off after about a year. And a friend of mine was an arborist, and he said that a guy he knew wanted to have someone work for him, and I didn't know what an arborist was. So I was like, that sounds cool. You climb trees, use chainsaws, sign me up. And kind of the rest of, well, not the rest is history. There's a bit of learning involved in that, obviously, and my
yeah, yeah,
attitude towards trees has changed significantly now from a climbing trees and using chainsaws perspective to a more trees first kind of attitude.
yeah. Man. So what did the kiwi grafting like thing look like for you? Is that, for here, only thing I'm familiar with is that like we occasionally have like orange, lime, or like lemon trees here, but
Yep.
so what's the setup down there that you got familiar with?
Well, the grafting is it's exactly the same thing. You get a scion, you create an entry point into the kiwi fruit's like a vine. So you go through, and what you do is you would cut a section into the big vine trunk with a chainsaw, cut like a wedge out, and then
Hmm.
you'd go through with a back then it was like a machete, and you'd split the trunk and you'd lever it open, and then you'd match up the cambium layers with the scion's cambium, and then you'd slot that in. Then basically cover up that whole thing, cover it up with tape to close the crack, and then the scions
Hmm.
would keep going. And then after that, it was just basically maintenance on that, training the leaders, and uh, yeah, that kind of thing.
How many do they produce like a single plant? Is that, I mean,
Kiwi fruit.
endless? Yeah, I mean, I have no clue. I mean, I've never
Oh,
looked into kiwi fruit. Like,
so they have these big orchards basically, and they have this kind of like structure set up, which is like bays. So they've got a big overhead. So you've got kiwi fruit running down the edge of the rows, and then you train the vines up, and then in a single season, they'll grow enough for you
hmm.
to lay these leaders down opposite directions, and then depending on like the root stock, you could almost get a full canopy in a year's time or 2 years time. Yeah, like they
Oh
grow
my
really
gosh.
prolifically. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's been a while, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting plant, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's wild. That's crazy to think. I'm like, how little I've thought of kiwi until this point now. Like, I think
Yeah,
you
where it's
occasionally
come
have
from.
them at the grocery store, or like you're like
Yeah.
occasionally had them in the lunchroom at school. But besides that, it's like, man, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, kiwi fruit gold specifically, the variety is huge amount of money in it, eh? Like
Wow.
huge amount, yeah. But through that, you have to tender for licenses to grow it and all that kind of stuff. So it's not really like you can just get a block of land and plant kiwi fruit and start producing. It's quite a regulated
Yeah.
industry, and I think that's why it does so well.
Do you guys have like guava and lilikoi down there? Do you know of that?
Yeah, yeah, we have guava, but we don't really. Well, not that I know of. I don't think we really mass grow it for production or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I did a like a gap year program after I graduated high school, and it was in Maui, and
Yep.
they had like guava and I think it was called lilikoi and some avocado trees. That was really fun living there. So,
Yeah. Plenty of avocados here.
man, yeah, we had one outside of our cabin, and like every time we would walk to go out to class, you could like step on an avocado and almost fall.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty wild. Well, man, that's cool hearing about that. So, we've talked your childhood and grown up in New Zealand and talked a little bit about after that in Germany and all that. But what were the beginning stages for Köwhai and what brought it to where it is today?
Ah, I think I spent a good 7 years kind of based in Germany, but I was doing a lot of travel, a lot of contracting, did a lot of work in different countries, and a real focus on basically trees were my life, climbing trees were my life. I go off on like holidays to climb trees in Gambia or go to the States and to climb trees, and
Yeah.
competitions, climbing competitions, all that. So I was just fully ingrained, and that was like my entire life. Um, and so coming back to New Zealand, um, I felt like I'd spent a good amount of my physical, invested a lot of my physical conditioning into other people's companies. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to start my own business here. And initially I was just contracting, going around and doing contract climbing. But yeah, here's like, you just get kind of beasted with I did anyway, just big gnarly trees.
Hmm.
And I feel like there wasn't a lot of, I don't get any satisfaction from cutting down big trees anymore. A lot of the trees we cut down are invasive and not desirable, and they grow like wildfire. But, similar to maybe what you've seen in Hawaii with like the albizzias and things like this. Just like plenty of big, very very big pine trees,
Hmm.
Onco pines, and macrocarpa and eucalyptus. So I was doing a lot of that, and just kind of wanted to do more of the work I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's some pretty wild videos and pictures of people in like eucalyptus, or I guess some people call them gum trees, that it's like
Yep.
using
Yep. Totally.
36, 42-inch bars, and they're still,
Mm.
20 or 30 feet off the ground. Like that's a huge tree. So
Yeah,
some
and
of the
they're
wild
everywhere.
stuff.
They're absolutely everywhere as well.
And so they're considered invasive down there too, like eucalyptus or.
Uh, I wouldn't eucalyptus. I wouldn't say they're invasive. So, but there's been a lot of them planted for shelter belts and orchards, and they can grow, 45 meters tall in a matter of, 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Same with pines. Pines are wildling pines are an invasive species, but it's also our main forestry export. So we've got lots uh, and lots of just pine plantations. So like
Huh.
pretty bad monoculture, but one of our biggest exports for timber. Because they grow to maturity here in 25 years.
Yeah. Well, that's
Mm.
I guess it's kind of a loss that it's an invasive, but a benefit that it helps your economy, I guess. So.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is like they, yeah, in certain
Is it
areas they become like just they spread like wildfire.
is
Um,
it pulp? Is it pulpwood that it's sold for? Like,
no. It's like it's building timber and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff too. Yeah, it's very fast growing, but quite flexible wood.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, they do some of that in the southern states. Like I'm in Tennessee, but east of here, like in South Carolina and in Georgia, they had like a lot of pine plantations for
yeah,
25-year harvesting, and
yeah,
so yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Mm.
Man, so what kind of work do you focus on now with Köwhai, and do you have a crew or do you contract guys? Like, how do you have it set up now?
Yeah. So the work I like doing is like nice pruning, big trees. But there's not a huge amount of work like that here. And I kind of through just experience, I guess, created a bit of a niche in the helicopter arena.
Hmm.
Um, so my focus with Coleman Tree Care is looking after my current clients, and also having a bit more of a focus on the helicopter work, and
Yeah.
that's done with contractors. Yeah,
Okay.
because you can't really train staff to do that work,
Yeah.
in a short amount of time. It has
Have
to
a
be done
have a
properly.
groundie that's 18 and teach them how to do a heli job like a year
Yeah,
later.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I think in terms of like liability with health and safety and things like this, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, being an employer to look after your staff, and
Yeah.
being a particularly dangerous job if you don't know how to do it right, or you don't you can't see the bigger picture in what you're doing, which is a lot of people when they're, an apprentice, which is everyone when they're apprentice or, coming up. It's difficult to train that through. So I'm lucky enough to have a fantastic group of friends who are also incredibly experienced in kind of all areas, and specifically around the helicopter work as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I was introduced to you. I think I found you through, if I pronounce it right, Kahu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, yeah.
So the video that was produced on YouTube, I think I had watched that and I was like, man, this is incredible. And I think when I talked to a couple friends of mine that I would be doing this episode with you, I don't know if it's the same down in New Zealand, but the Black Hawk helicopter is like an American icon as
Yeah.
far as just like it being a legend of a helicopter. And I mean, all the other ones are cool too, but there's a lot of legendary and stories and everything behind that helicopter. So that's how I originally found you. But yeah, so what has that been like getting into helicopter logging? Like, what was your first introduction to it? And yeah, like, what's that journey been like?
Well,
Because that's new territory for most people listening.
yeah. So, there's not a lot of law. I mean, around the Black Hawk in New Zealand, it's obviously an American military helicopter. But I mean, everyone knows what a Black Hawk is. Um, I I did my first heli job in Germany. Actually, we were taking out
Hmm.
a big sequoia dendron, and that was I guess it's like as a young arborist, that's kind of like what every climbing arborist kind of wants to do. They want to have time under a helicopter, and
Yeah.
I guess I was just lucky enough to be in a company where we did one, and then I always had a real good eye for weights and um, rigging and all this kind of stuff through crane work and rigging. So did a lot of rigging in Germany and a lot of crane work.
Yeah.
So helicopter work actually was kind of a little bit easier or just felt natural, you know. So it's an interesting thing because you do and you plan out all of your cuts beforehand. And so if you're pretty good with your weights and you understand how a piece is going to come off, then, if you can handle things as they arise with pressure, then, you're in a good spot to do that. And I guess I just kind of fell into that area. And then through doing one, you get kind of sought after for other helicopter work. And then it just kind of the next job rolls into the next job, rolls into the next job, and then all of a sudden you've got
Yeah.
a lot of experience in it. And so I think when that job came up, it's on a local place here in Tauranga called Moau. Moau is the traditional Maori name for it, and Mount Maunganui is what a whole bunch of people really know it as, but it's one of New Zealand's largest pa complexes, which is like an old fortified living area. And so that's kind of where this whole job came up.
Hmm.
Was there were these very, very large trees that had been sitting there for a long time, and nobody really knew how to get rid of them, or the ways they wanted to get rid of them just weren't going to work because of, they're just going to damage the ground or,
Yeah.
just decimate the site. So the tender came up through a company I'd done work with, local company I'd done work with here in Tauranga called Treewise Men, and that's basically that job came around and we did it together. So it wasn't just my job that we
Okay.
flew all the trees. It was a combination of Treewise Men and
Okay.
Köwhai Tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the reason the Black Hawk was involved was purely because of the size of the trees.
Huh.
So They were just huge, huge trees. And if anyone wants to kind of see that, then I'm sure we'll have a link to the video I put up on YouTube, or
Yeah, we can put a link for that on the episode. But
yeah,
yeah,
like you can kind of get a bit more of a in-depth understanding as to why this job came about. But we normally use squirrels, which are the B3s, which is the AS350, which is got a capacity of, I think, depending on how much fuel, up to 1,300 kilos. I don't know how many pounds it is. Sorry.
yeah, I'm not good with
And
that conversion. So.
yeah. But the Black Hawk, has a on paper lifting capacity of 3.6 ton, so significantly more than the Squirrel.
Yeah,
And like some of those sections that we're lifting out, the stem wood on these trees was, they were like biscuits, but they weighed 3 ton. So they weren't the height of me, but the circumference was just massive, and
yeah.
cut them right through. And if you wanted to use a squirrel for that, you'd have to cut these sections into you'd have to do the same size thing, but then rip it into 3 parts to be able to get one of those biscuits off,
Wow.
which is just, and with that particular site, it's very public, and closing it down is a big deal,
Hmm.
and you can't have people walking around when you're working. So
Yeah.
that was kind of factored in as well. I guess
And I guess you
the
use a lot more
significant.
fuel too if you're having to like cut things 3 separate times and do trips over to like the parking lot area they were dropped off. It's a good bit of fuel you're using up.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of cost, it would have been fine because the Black Hawk's not a cheap machine, but more impact into
Yeah.
the local community,
Uh
because we
huh.
didn't just have one tree. We had, I think it was, how many? Maybe 8 for the first section. We had 18 trees of similar size,
Hmm.
so that would have been well over I don't know how much estimate, but over a week's worth of flying.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting when sometimes when money becomes not as much of a factor as like the importance of the area that you're in. So I don't have a ton of
Yeah.
experience with those environments, but it is interesting to see how it can affect a job like that. So
I think they probably would have balanced out in terms of the money involved, but I mean, yeah, we got the first section flown out in 2 days, as opposed
wow.
to 5 or 6 days. So its efficiency is a big thing, and I guess that was kind of the risk, because to my knowledge, a Black Hawk has never been used for cutting with arborists in the tree, let alone
Yeah,
a
I'd never
site
heard of
like
that
that.
before. So yeah.
No. So they've used similar sized machines over in Switzerland and South Germany and things like this,
Yeah.
for doing that, but not really. They'll pick half a tree, which will weigh 3.4 ton or whatever they come off. Lots of really, really skilled crews over that part of the world too. Very,
Hmm.
very impressive.
Yeah.
But this year, we were doing over 20 lifts of over 2.5 ton in one tree. So it was, yeah, very, very technical rigging, and a lot of thinking, a lot of planning.
Yeah. And I can't, you might have touched on this, but how many days did it take you to strap everything up too? Like, was that a pretty good bit of
Oh
prep
well,
too?
I think we did the first, because we did two separate. So the video you've seen was just off the first round that we did up there. It might have been two days. I think we were doing site prep. I think slinging and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we had a world class crew on that job, like the best you can get. So, it made things made things easy when like everyone on site's the person that normally gets looked at for what do we do. We just had
Yeah,
a crew of them.
man, that's
Mm.
awesome. And how'd you get introduced to Mark? Uh, he
No, it
was the
was
pilot, right?
through this project. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So Tree Wise Men, they were in comms, were talking about it, and that was the idea that came up. And so through that, we had a conversation with Mark. He was over in Australia fighting fires with the Black Hawk, and then basically just kind of just progressed from there. You know,
yeah,
yeah. So it was a
man,
tendered process. So it was a price job, and Treewise Men were responsible for all of the council liaison. Basically, Brad prepared a 83-page site-specific health and safety document. So basically, a
wow,
book. And like my role in that with like doing a few meetings here and there was more focused on the helicopter and the team and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
hmm. 83 pages. I bet that's he probably didn't get to use AI on that either.
Nah, nah,
Nah,
nah, no, he didn't, mate.
gosh,
Nah, nah, nah. He did a pretty impressive job, actually. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it was, just everyone kind of like use their skills to work together, and everyone just fit in great as a team, and that's kind of how it all went the way it did. There's a lot of stuff that popped up along the way which we had to kind of get over.
yeah,
Um, but at the end of the day, it's like the dust settles. It was pretty impressive, and I mean that just comes down to good planning and having the best team you can get.
yeah, yeah. That's
Mm.
awesome. It looks like it was really well executed. And for everybody listening, I'll put the link in the episode as well, like in the description or whatever. But yeah, Jesse, you talk about you had experience with cranes as well, and it seems like uh, with the heli jobs that the piece has to come off, or it looks like it comes off just like a little bit differently than you would in a crane scenario. So explain,
Yeah.
like, what did you learn along like that journey of
So
learning how to do helicopter work versus how like a crane piece would be slung and come off?
yeah. So there's a real funnily enough, like in New Zealand, there's a lot of heli work in New Zealand, so lots of companies do it, but with
Yeah,
with the B3, and so there's kind of like protocol around how that gets done, and it's more like efficiency over like finesse, and that's not something I really agree with. I think you can do things well and safe, if you have the right process and you understand how to sling properly. But the overall general kind of attitude um, is like get the pieces off and get the next one coming, because with a crane it's attached to the ground. And you want to aim for little to no movement. You don't want to shock the crane. You don't want to do anything. You want it to have it to come off really nice. So, um, slinging and chaining up crane pieces, takes a lot more understanding, finesse, hook position, pre-tension, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Um, with helicopters, it's more like you put a sling on and you cut it, and there'll be a bit of movement away. But with the Black Hawk, that doesn't work. You can't have a 15-meter long branch just flip and it stay there, and the whole thing comes back and gets you. You're working with much larger pieces, much
yeah,
longer pieces, so you need to really finesse and do things a little bit more technically. Like you'll
hmm.
see, I don't know, you won't really see much in the video, but like there's a lot of balancing out with two strops, and finding really good points, and tip tying is really really
Wow.
really important. Tip tying's very very important,
Because if you
because
get that heavy of a piece and then you have it flip or it be like tip heavy, then that's like a pretty dynamic load you're dumping into the helicopter. So
so the heli doesn't mind that much. It doesn't mind because the pilot's kind of like once they get a feel for it, they can kind of power out the dynamic movement. You don't want that like in anything, but it's not like you're flipping a piece onto a crane where it starts bouncing and then you've got so much more load at the actual top of the crane than with a helicopter. It's just basically an isolated unit where the piece will, if it comes off and flips into it, it will get more load onto it, but the pilots generally can kind of power that load out.
Wow.
So a bit of dynamic movement into a helicopter isn't the worst thing, but the more I do it and the more I really like go through it, is there's so many different ways of like kind of mitigating that risk, and understanding how sections come off is a huge part of that, especially when you've got climbers around and you've got ropes in other trees or whatever, like you really have to have a fine eye for detail because it's fast paced. Things flip and a rope's off in like another tree and you're leading into that tree. That piece could flip back, grab a rope, and then what can you do basically? So just having an eye and understanding about that is what I guess comes with experience when you're doing lots of heli lifts.
Yeah, man. Would you say that job was, I mean, obviously it was memorable in some sort, but do you have like a memorable heli job experience or crane job that comes to mind that is like one of your favorites?
That obviously that job there was really, really special.
Yeah.
Just how everything kind of came together and very memorable. But we, in terms of like crane work, like we did a really big job over for the company I used to work at, called Baum Brown. Shout out to all the Baum Brownians over there in Germany. We were lifting lots of very like big trees off the side of a bank above a road. So we had the road closed down for a week, and that's I did some pretty impressive lifts out of that one.
Yeah.
Like whole tree sections, 7-ton full mature crown canopies like that barely fit on the road, and so that was
Wow.
that was a pretty cool job. We did two rounds there as well. And
How big was the crane that you guys used?
I think that was 120 tonner plus
Wow.
counterweight. So like with those kind of pieces, it's like you do them in one or you do them in six. It's
Yeah.
just the nature of it, just the way that the crown's balanced, and so you look at it and you go, well, if I take that piece off, then I've got 4 other lifts over here because so that was kind
Balance
of
and all
the
that. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes it's actually, well, if you know what you're doing and you're confident, I find that sometimes it's safer to go bigger with those because you minimize that movement.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome.
Mm.
It seems like the UK too is like on the forefront, or like they're always on the cutting edge of like what equipment they incorporate too. And the US is like starting to kind of borrow some things from the UK as far as like equipment and trucks that we're using for tree care, like the knuckle boom. It's been around for more
Mm.
than a decade now here, but like it seems like the UK they like pioneered that technology, obviously with Palfinger being over there and some of the other companies. But it's cool to see how much creativity and equipment they use over there too.
It might just be the people you're exposed to, because there's a lot of that work in Europe, in Germany, Switzerland, up in Sweden, things like this too.
Yeah,
But it's not really it depends on where you're at with like who you follow or your YouTube or whatever, what your exposure is to the industry. I think that's potentially why. But yeah, I think like high abs are great, they're fantastic. But they're a different way of they're a different kind of technique compared to like a mobile crane. Because you don't have that finesse of where you put your hook and your pre-tension. So like if you come over and you get a great hook position, you still need to load that piece with the right amount of pre-tension. And that may mean that you're pulling it back slightly to where you originally want it and all that kind of stuff. The coolest machine I worked with in terms of like, the most efficient machine I worked with in terms of cranes was the big high ab, massive reach, and he had a cable on it. So what we'd do is we'd put it over the tree, we'd get it in the right position, and depending on how far away it is, we'll allow for a bit of flex there. But he'll drop the hook down, like a couple of meters. He'll take the tension with the hook, and then he'll take it off, and he can still move it like a high ab, but he's not having the big long section of cable and tree that will like sway. So it was really, really efficient. Really fast. Yeah.
Huh. So was it like a short sling, or did he actually have like a cable and a pulley on there? If it's a
So it
knuckle
was just
boom?
like it was just basically a knuckle boom with a cable on it. So
Oh, okay.
So just like basically like a normal crane, but you get
Yeah.
the added benefit of having a short amount of cable with that. So you drop it all the way down as far as you want. You could use it like a crane. But the real cool thing about that is you're not having, with a short amount of cable onto the chains, you've not got that like lag. And when you're moving, you have to like kind of be really, really slow because, as the piece, if it's got a lot of cable, uh, it drags a bit. And so if you stop, the piece wants to keep moving, So that's where cranes are a little bit slower in that respect. But the high ab, you still deal with that, but you can like suck it right in and move it around. And then once you're quite
Yeah.
short, you can use it like a grab kind of thing.
Yeah, that's neat.
Mm.
Man. Well, I've had a lot of fun getting to hear about your experiences and all about the heli jobs. This is kind of fun sometimes to see if you have a memorable experience, like embarrassing is maybe not the right word, but like what is a mistake you've made before where you like one where you like learned a lot from it and it like really changed who you are as an arborist? Do you have one that like comes to mind?
Yeah, I do actually.
We all do. We all have hundreds probably, but there's some that are more memorable.
Yeah, well, I guess this could be a good thing for people if they're kind of fresh in the industry, keen, going hard, just super production focused. So when I first got to Germany, I was working hard, loving it, loved getting beasted, loved it. And so all the hard stuff, the boss would be like, oh, send the Kiwi boy up and do it. And I'm like, yep, absolutely. And all the crew loved that too. They're like, yeah, go for it. And so it had a really heavy work week. And it was coming towards the end of the week, actually. And I was flying back to New Zealand on that weekend. And so we've been reducing these big plane trees all day. So I was pretty knackered. And then we got sent to a job at like 4 p.m., like classic, one last
Yeah.
job. And it was like reducing a previously topped silver maple. And it was in
Oh
a
man.
backyard. It was like just like concrete and stuff everywhere, had to rig everything off. And I'd said to the crew, I was like, man, I'm knackered, Like I don't think I can kind of get up and do this. And then one of the other boys jumped up and started cutting, and I was just kind of looking at my watch, going, "This is not going to get done." And so I was like, "No, come down. I'll get up and I'll do it." And so I went up and I was rigging everything off, had my top rope in, had my rigging point, everything was coming off really quickly, really fast, really good. And then it was down to the second to last cut, and the piece kind of bananaed up out over my left shoulder, so my ankle point was up out of my view, and I'd been rigging off my top rope the whole time, and so for whatever reason I tied the piece on, and I must have just been completely knackered. I didn't even have my lanyard on, which is, something I always have. And actually looking back at it now, I was really lucky I didn't. And so, and all the crew on the ground were knackered too. All these things kind of come into one where if they had seen what was about to happen, they would have said something, but they didn't see it. So basically what happened was I cut the piece I was attached to. And so when the piece came over, I saw my anchor point out of my left eye, and I'm just like, oh well. And I chucked my chain brake on, and basically got ripped out of the tree. And that's why I'm saying luckily I didn't have my lanyard on. And then the piece caught in the rigging, and then I kind of like pendulum down to about 2 meters above the concrete. And I didn't really know what's happening. I was just like, well, I was looking, I was like, did the piece get caught up or whatever? And I was like, oh, come down and like unclipped, and obviously all the crew were like white with shock. Oof. And I was like, well, yeah. And then I don't know, I wouldn't recommend this, but I was like, nah, I'm getting back up there, So don't do this. But so I footlocked back up the rigging rope, reset the rigging, and then cut the last piece, and then that was job done. But basically to like summarize that was a real pivotal point in my career where I go, actually, getting home at the end of the day is significantly more important than getting a job done for someone else, And that attitude has, my climbing changed, and like for the better too. Didn't stop me being productive at all. It just made me, I don't know, change my view a little bit, and it was one of the most important things. Luckily, still here to kind of talk about it, because I mean, even if I had my lanyard on, that would have been like, boom, straight into my hips, and then that would have been like a rescue scenario, and who knows what could have happened out of that too. So everything kind of happens for a reason. But that's very much a memorable moment in my career for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. I'm not a fan of silver maples. Hey, not a favorite tree. So
yeah, tough trees, snappy, wide. Gets you good at climbing though. Slippery too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. It's cool that you've, like, each experience and different thing you've had in life, you've taken something away from it, grown, and, developed passions for, what you do now. And I thought it was cool the other day, you shared a post helping out, is it called Marlboro Tree Care? With some communication. Yep. So like maybe touch on like some of that too. I think it's cool that you are sharing with others like your passion for it, but also it seemed like Marlboro, which I'm not familiar with them at all, but it seemed like they were sharing on social media like just how much they enjoyed like you taking leadership and how much knowledge you had. So yeah, how's that been for you? Like getting onto the communication side of it? Is it crossover pretty well? Like what's that been like?
Well, like with helicopter work, it's really important to have, I guess you'd call a dogman who is basically eyes over the entire job site. Now, I was contracted in. Matty brought me down for that job. He had done all the pricing. He had done the kind of the planning of how he thought that the job should go, and he basically got me down there to help out. Cause it's quite a young crew, real keen climbers, very capable climbers, and basically my role was to be the to have my eyes on the job site and do flight planning, like that tree, that tree, that tree. And then as things progress, you get a feeling for like where we're lifting up loads and loads of different pines. So when you've got a job site like that, you don't want to have just one tree or like four trees kind of left and there's not one person up there. You want everything to kind of get blended in together so that there's no downtime for the chopper. And so that was kind of like what I was doing there, was just kind of having that oversight and looking out for the crew as well, just picking up on a few bits and pieces, and just like a couple of times I was like, oh, hey, well, hold on, flip around the other side of the stem or whatever, you know what I mean? And I could see things happening as they were going, and basically I was the comms to the pilot, just letting him know what tree to go to, how these things are going to come off. And it was that pilot's first tree job as well. So they, But the thing with helicopter pilots is like they're all pretty bloody good. And once they kind of get a feel for something, they're like, okay, this is how it's meant to be, and that's what's going to happen. And a lot of responsibility on the pilots to keep people safe, So just making sure he was positioned in the right spot, make sure that everyone's clear with what's going on, and that was kind of the thing. And so basically, I like sharing knowledge. I like helping out where I can, and it was just a great spot because I'd known Matty for a while, and he's just one of those dudes that really into planning, really kind of like wants, got an eye for detail. And so that was like a huge accomplishment for him and his crew to pull off a job like that as well as they did. So yeah. So like on that kind of note, the dogman role. So when we do helicopter work, or I do helicopter work, so I'm always up in the tree. So I've got a guy, Andy Neverman, who's very, very, very experienced. He's a living legend in New Zealand. He took me on my first chainsaw course to like put it in perspective.
Wow.
And so he's done all the comms for the pilot and the climbers on the job, the Black Hawk job there. So it's just an absolute super important role, because you want to have someone that will have your back and understand what's going on, because there's things that you won't pick up on or whatever. So it's an important role for sure. And Andy does all that work has done all that work for the mount jobs. And
yeah, man, that is awesome. That's cool. So you would say he's like almost a mentor? Does he like mentor a lot of guys, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. I feel like he's like everyone like in New Zealand knows Andy. He's been like one of the main people who have helped out a lot of the competition climbers, mentoring them with skills and working together and his experiences. And like to put it in perspective, James, who just won it this year, and also Steph, who won it this year, both Kiwis. Good, really, really good people. I spent a lot of time with James over in Germany, and worked together with Steph. She was up on the Mount Moal job with us, Black Hawk job, and they both thanked Andy Neverman in their acceptance speeches for when they won the Worlds this year. So,
that's super cool. It's got to be a great feeling if you're him, just to see people that you've mentored in that scenario. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, man, Jesse, it's been a great time getting to know you, hear about your experiences and the heli stuff. I know it was quite a bit to coordinate getting together, obviously being on these different time zones, but super appreciate the time, man. It's awesome.
No, well, thanks for having me. I mean, I've been approached to do podcasts in the past and kind of been like, nah, but I thought, why not?
Yeah.
Why not
awesome.
this time?
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to sharing the story. And if you're listening or watching, it'll be on Spotify and YouTube. And then, like we talked about, the video of the Blackhawk job, I can share a link to that in the description. And I'll also put Jesse's Instagram just in case you wanted to give him a follow. And any of the other people he mentioned, I'm sure he could can share any of that. But
And
yeah,
yeah, and plenty of people I didn't mention in this, but yeah, a lot of people that I owe a lot to
yeah,
coming up through the industry
totally.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, anyways, man, if you don't have anything else, I think we'll catch up on the other side, and hopefully, a lot of people enjoy listening to this episode. Sound good?
Awesome. Thanks, Cam.
Cool. We'll catch you guys on the next one.